Let's take a look at every club's biggest ever Premier League win. Arsenal. It seems like a lifetime ago, back in the days when Arsene Wenger was still a god on North London and Troops was probably his biggest fan, but the Gunners managed to stick 7 past Everton and Middlesbrough inside 6 months. What's even more impressive is that both sides were enjoying impressive campaigns. The Toffees were on the way to finishing 4th, a position Arsenal have become very familiar with, when the Gunners ripped them to shreds in May 2005. When Middlesbrough received the battering as Thierry Henry notched the hat-trick, in January 2006 they were on their way to reaching a UEFA Cup final, before having their manager appointed England boss. Let's not dwell on how that one turned out. Bournemouth. Bournemouth have only ever been in the Premier League for what seemed like 5 minutes, but Eddie Howe's men have still produced a 6-goal battering in that time. In October last year, a struggling Hull City, a team who started the season with about 12 players, were humbled 6-1. Mike Phelan never really stood a chance, did he? Brighton. Alright, so Brighton really have been in the top flight for about 30 seconds, so their record win is a relatively modest 3-0 victory at the London Stadium, which saw West Ham fans have a virtual meltdown and start screaming for the head of their former fan favourite. Be careful what you wish for, lads. Burnley. The return of Hull City to this list, and we haven't even reached the 3rd letter of the alphabet. Boy Jesus. During the second half of the 09-10 campaign, Burnley were pretty hopeless. Brian Laws had managed to win just 1 game since replacing Owen Coyle in January, and when relegation rivals Hull City took the lead after just 2 minutes at the start of April, he must have feared the worst, as if the worst had already happened. But no, Hull, who had just sacked Phil Brown, were similarly terrible and collapsed, with goals from Martin Patterson, Wade Elliott, and 2 penalties from the nearly 40-year-old Graham Alexander sealing the win. Chelsea. They say Rafa Benitez plays defensive football. Well, not even he could resist sticking 8 past at Aston Villa defence that looked as though they'd rather be anywhere but on a football pitch, although he still decided to sign Kieran Clark after that. Let's focus on the 8-0 win over Wigan in May 2010 though, for the importance that it served. Just like they were for the 2013 FA Cup final, Man United fans worldwide were Wigan supporters for a day. As unlikely as it was, they needed the Lanarks to get a result at Stamford Bridge on the final day of the season to stand any chance of winning the league. Unlike Sergio Aguero though, who decided to prolong their misery 2 years later, the Blues made a mockery of all that, with Didier Drogba bagging a hat-trick as they wrapped up the league in style. Crystal Palace. Alan Pardew probably thinks he got a rough ride at Newcastle, clinging to the fact that he was the only man since 2004 to get them to within an inch of Champions League qualification, so they've taken some pleasure from sticking 5 past them 2 years ago. Papi Cisse gave Newcastle the lead at Selhurst Park, with doubles from James McCarthy, Yannick Bolasie, and a smart finish from Wilfred Zaha increased the pressure on Steve McLaren. Everton. Back in 1996, Graham Souness brought his Southampton side to the home of what were once his local rivals. He left having been drubbed 7-1, thanks in large to a Gary Speed hat-trick. The Toffees would have to wait 11 years to match that feat, when Roy Keane foolishly put Paul McShane onto the Goodison Park turf, trusting him to defend like a normal human being and not like a hyperactive 4-year-old. The Black Cats were ripped to pieces, but I'd say that's nothing compared to what Keane did to them back in the dressing room. I wouldn't be surprised if the groundsmen were scraping McShane's blood off the walls for weeks to come. Huddersfield. Again, Huddersfield are only in their 4th month of Premier League football, but no, their largest win was also their first, a 3-0 win away from home at Crystal Palace, which pretty much sent panic stations ringing at Selhurst Park already. Poor old Frank de Boer. Leicester City. You wouldn't have thought Leicester's record win would have come from a season they looked doomed in, having miraculously pulled off the great escape. They welcomed QPR on the final day of the 14-15 season and celebrated Jamie Vardy's first England call-up in style. Liverpool. Jesus, Southampton really didn't like going to Merseyside back in the 90s, did they? Half the team were probably still suffering post-traumatic stress from Goodison Park a few years earlier, when they turned up to Anfield in 1999, only to get ripped apart again. Robbie Fowler bagged a hat-trick as the Saints were absolutely demolished. Man City. Alright, the way they're going, don't be surprised to see Man City hit more 7s or even 8s this campaign. Just wait till they get their hands on West Ham. The biggest win came in November 2013, when Norwich City could not live with them, shipping 7. Of course, scoring 2 own goals didn't help, but other strikes from David Silva, Alvaro Negredo, Yaya Toure, Sergio Aguero and Edin Dzeko sealed the deal to move 4th and only 6 points behind tabletoppers Arsenal. Yeah, seriously. Man United. The biggest win in Premier League history, Ipswich Town are never going to live this one down. Back in March 1995, Roy Keane got the ball rolling after 15 minutes, before 5 from Andy Cole, 2 from Mark Hughes and a strike from Paul Ince made the Ipswich defenders wish they'd picked a different profession. Newcastle. It was late September 1999, Newcastle had not won all season, losing 6 out of 7 and had not won at St James's Park in 7 months. What odds would you have gotten on them suddenly smashing in 8? There is such thing as the new manager buzz, but this was taking the piss. This was Sir Bobby Robson's first home game and he talked up the basement clash with Sheffield Wednesday as a relegation 6-pointer. Well, Alan Shearer then scored 5, either side of goals from Aaron Hughes, Kieran Dyer and Gary Speed, as the club went on to finish a comfortable 11th, with the name Rudd Hullet never to be spoken of again. Stoke City. In May 2014, it was Liverpool's defence that stopped them from being crowned champions of England. 1 year later, their defence was the reason they were 5-0 down at half-time against Stoke City. I don't know what was more embarrassing, the scoreline, the fact that Mame Biram Juff, who's now a glorified right-back, scored twice, or that the Stoke defence let Gerrard bag a farewell strike as if it was some testimonial. Southampton. Yeah, Sunderland appear on this list once again. You won't find longer trips in Premier League football than the one from Sunderland to Southampton, and the fans were rewarded for their dedication with an 8-0 defeat. The game got off to a bad start when Santiago Vergini volleyed home from 18 yards into his own net, good lad. And then cue the onslaught. Swansea City. Sorry Sunderland fans, I know you're having a rough time of it, I don't mean to rub it in, but yeah, you've made this list for the third time. This was Gus Poyet's first game in charge after Paolo Di Canio was chased out the door in October 2013. 0-0 at half-time down in South Wales seemed promising. 4-0 at the final whistle did not. Tottenham. Yeah, 6 months before their humbling Stamford Bridge, Roberto Martinez had taken his Wigan outfit to North London and been smashed 9-1. Roberto, you can't set a team up to play like Barcelona when you have a defence filled with Eric Edmond and Titus Bramble. It was a day to remember for Jermaine Defoe, bagging 5. Watford. Watford have never been in the business of thrashing anyone, but they did enjoy a 3-0 win over Liverpool in December 2015, made everyone realise that Adam Bogdan was about as useful as a glass hammer. West Brom. Back before Peter Odemwingie started turning up at clubs and demanding they let him sign for them, a bit like arriving to a party you weren't invited to, he was actually a hot shot for West Brom and bagged the hat-trick in February 2012 as they obliterated Wolves to increase the pressure on Mick McCarthy. He was sacked the next day, they appointed Terry Connor, and oh good god, West Ham. Back in January 1998, West Ham tore Barnsley to pieces. Frank Lampard got the ball running before a double from Samasi Abu and strikes from John Muncour, John Arton and Stan Lazaridis put the gloss on proceedings. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe.